This is the newsroom.
This is the newsroom for today, Thursday, February 5th, 2026. We are broadcasting to you on E1 SKAR TV, NTN, and TARZEE TV in Bartica. In the headlines, 4 men have died after suspected chemical exposure aboard a cargo barge docked in Georgetown. Sparks flew in the National Assembly on Thursday as opposition MP Odessa Primus and Minister Charles Ramson Jr. clashed over budget support and initiatives for Guyana's youth and creative sector. President Irfaan Ali has called on the Guyana Defence Force to heighten vigilance amid Venezuela's developments and rising organized crime threats. Another bid for adjournment in the extradition proceedings of Azruddin Mohamed is refused by Magistrate Judy Lachman. And in sport, Charles Ramson Jr. and Odessa Primus clash over sport development in Budget Debate 2026, and Coach Sammy says Hetmyer showing maturity and taking responsibility at number 3. With the news, I am Ramson. Thanks for joining us. We start off with a tragic story. 4 men died following suspected chemical exposure aboard a cargo barge docked at a wharf on Water Street, Georgetown on Wednesday night. Police have confirmed that the men were reportedly exposed to suspected noxious fumes.
What began as a routine inspection aboard a docked cargo vessel at the Courtney Ben Wharf on Water Street, Georgetown turned deadly within minutes on Wednesday night as 4 Guyana Port Inc. employees collapsed one after the other inside a vessel's engine room while attempting to save each other. The incident occurred around 1800 hours. Dead are 18-year-old Brandon Dionarine, a seaman of Support Eastbank Demerara, 57-year-old Nerwin Pesad, a boat captain of Cummins Lodge, East Coast Demerara, 33-year-old Dominic Alexis, a seaman of Dekendran, West Coast Demerara, and 25-year-old Gitindra Sanchara, an engineer of Cummins Lodge, East Coast Demerara. The newsroom understands that Pesad, the captain of the vessel, and Dionarine were the first to enter the engine room at the bottom of the cargo barge to conduct a dry inspection. Moments later, both men collapsed. Upon seeing this, Alexis rushed to the confined space in an attempt to rescue them. He too collapsed. In an effort to help, Sanchara ran down into the engine room, but he also lost consciousness. A 66-year-old seaman reportedly told investigators that when he attempted to go down to assist, he suddenly felt stiffness in his chest and began experiencing difficulty breathing. Fearing for his life, he retreated to the deck and ran to the radio room where he made an emergency call for help. Emergency services were summoned to the scene, and the 4 men were later transported to the Georgetown Public Hospital where they were pronounced dead. Samples were taken from the bodies and submitted to the forensic laboratory for examination. Police investigations are ongoing. For the newsroom, Charlotte Bacchus.
Now, there was a fiery clash in the National Assembly on Thursday afternoon as opposition parliamentarian Odessa Primus and Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport Charles Ramson Jr. locked horns over support for Guyana's creative sector and youth. In between dramatic jabs, quips, and serious defense of programs rolled out, a spirited debate over budgetary allocations and initiatives emerged.
One of the things I listed here is to teach Guyanese history, folklore, and so on within our schools. And I do believe that that is one of the things that our ministry needs to ensure that they do. To look at local language, proverbs, storytelling, and our heroes and so on should be included in our education system. I do believe that those things help not only with ensuring that our culture is preserved, but also to help people to have some sense of identity in terms of who we are as a people. As well as grants should be given for short films, stage plays, documentaries, dancing, painters, writers, and so forth. Those are people who are starving for help within the industry. As well as tax incentives or breaks for artists who produce local content.
Hundreds of young people have received funding from our Cultural and Creative Industries grant, for which $120 million was distributed. We completed the modernization of the National Trust Act, and I had the pleasure of speaking with the Attorney General, who has said that it will be ready for passage this term. We did 40 meetings of hard work to build internally that bill. We did that. That bill is now ready. That will help us with the preservation of our culture and our heritage.
Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Irfaan Ali, has called on the Guyana Defence Force for heightened vigilance in response to developments in Venezuela and stressed the need to confront organized crime while protecting the nation's resources. He made the call while speaking at the Guyana Defence Force's annual officers' conference on Thursday.
Amid developments in neighboring Venezuela, President Dr. Irfaan Ali is calling on Guyana to stay vigilant. Speaking at the opening ceremony of the Guyana Defence Force Annual Officers Conference on Thursday, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces said protecting the nation's territory is a responsibility that rests at home.
The present situation in Venezuela does not remove nor diminish the threat to Guyana's territory. If anything, history teaches us that uncertainty demands preparedness, not wishful thinking. Guyana must not drop its guard. Guyana must not blink. We must be prepared. We must be ready. We must be ever vigilant. Preparedness is not provocation. Readiness is not aggression. Vigilance is not hostility. They're simply the duties of a sovereign state that take itself seriously. And that is why the Guyana Defence Force must continue to ensure that it is ready for any eventuality on land, at sea, and in the air. Readiness is not something you scramble to assemble when trouble arrives. It is something you build quietly, steadily, and professionally. We have an unambiguous duty to defend our national patrimony from threats, both external and internal.
He also highlighted the growing threat of organized crime within Guyana, from illegal mining to trafficking, which endanger national development and security.
National defense cannot only be about territory. It is also about protection of our national assets. But the guardianship that you are expected to exercise does not occur in a vacuum. We operate in a hemisphere where security threats are fluid, layered, and increasingly complex. Transnational crime, organized trafficking, cyber threats, and geopolitical uncertainty have not taken a holiday. Transnational criminal networks are regional threats that must be confronted and removed from our hemisphere because they endanger security, slow development, and erode the harmony of our country. Guyana will play its full part in denying these networks safe haven, transit routes, or operating space within our territory. We'll support efforts to dismantle criminal cells.
For President Ali, defending sovereignty and safeguarding national assets go hand in hand as they're essential for Guyana's security and future. For President Ali, defending sovereignty and safeguarding national assets go hand in hand as they're both essential for Guyana's security and future. The Guyana Defence Force Annual Officers Conference is being held under the theme Transforming the Force to Better Confront the Nation's Present and Future Challenges by Enhancing its Awareness, Adaptability, and Agility Capabilities. The conference serves as a platform for senior leaders of the Guyana Defence Force to assess the strategic environment and chart the way forward for the year ahead. Reporting for the newsroom, Sharda Bacchus.
Now, extradition proceedings against businessman and opposition political figure Azruddin Mohamed continued on Thursday morning at the Georgetown Magistrates Court after Principal Magistrate Judy Lachman refused a defense request for an adjournment. The adjournment application was made by Defense Counsel Sayan Durjan, who told the court that Mohamed has been heavily engaged in the ongoing National Assembly budget debates, often working until midnight, and would be required to do so again in the coming week during the consideration of estimates. He further informed the court that Mohamed was suffering from a migraine and was on medication, adding that the adjournment request was made in the public interest. State Prosecutor Terrence Williams strongly opposed the request, arguing that the adjournments had become too frequent and that the proceedings were nearing completion.
The committal hearing in the extradition case against the Mohameds, Azruddin and his father Nazar, continued in the Georgetown Magistrates Court before Principal Magistrate Judy Lachman on Thursday. It comes one day after Chief Justice Acting Navindra Singh ruled in a separate matter in the High Court, essentially dismissing an application by the Mohammeds that accuses the government, including the Attorney General, the Minister of Home Affairs and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, of bias in this case. When the matter continued in the Georgetown Magistrates Court on Thursday, the first request from the defense, led by Attorney Siand Durjan, was to ask the magistrate to adjourn the matter in the Magistrates Court. Their reason is that Azruddin is the opposition leader, and because of the ongoing budget debates in the National Assembly, he would require time to participate in those debates and also prepare for his 1 hour-long presentation on Friday evening. The prosecution, led by Terrence Williams, objected to that request, saying that the sitting of the National Assembly does not trump a sitting or a hearing of court, and that either way, the timing for the sitting in the Magistrates Court does not collide or clash with the timing of Parliament, which is usually set from 2 p.m. every day. In the end, the magistrate did not allow the request for an adjournment and said that the matter will proceed. It proceeded with the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation being called to the stand again. This time, she was successful in helping the prosecution to tender the extradition document. It continued to cross-examination, and it saw Attorney Durjan seeking to authenticate the extradition document tendered, asking for the witness to compare photocopies that they had received from the prosecution, and also looking at different identifying factors on the document. Outside of the courtroom, lawyers spoke to the media, summarizing what happened inside the courtroom and what persons should look forward to next.
The sitting of Parliament does not conflict with the sitting of the court, and there is a need to press the matter along. And given that there is no conflict, and the dates in court were set long ago, we felt and the court agreed that the matter should proceed as scheduled.
Why is there a need to press the matter along, as you said?
All matters in court should be dealt with reasonable expedition, and any delays in any court matter must be with good reason.
There's a lot more to it than just going to Parliament and reciting a speech. Azruddin Mohamed has to vote and coordinate all of the speeches of the members of Parliament. So there's much more to it than that, of the opposition.
Reporting for the newsroom from the Georgetown Magistrates Court, I am Kurt Campbell.
Chief Justice Acting Navindra Singh has dismissed a High Court challenge brought by the U.S. indicted businessman and political figure Azruddin Mohamed and his father Nazar, rejecting claims that the government of Guyana and senior state officials acted with political bias in the extradition process against them. The ruling, delivered on Wednesday, clears the way for extradition proceedings to continue before the Georgetown Magistrates Court and represents a significant legal victory for the state. Speaking shortly after the decision, Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Anil Nandlal said the court had fully accepted the state's arguments and decisively rejected the allegation that political rivalry tainted the process.
He adopted our submissions. He relied upon the authorities, the judicial authorities that we produced, and he ruled that a case for bias has not been made out and cannot be made out, that the minister is not performing the type of function when she's issuing that authority. She's not performing a judicial or a quasi-judicial function, but is simply discharging an executive function and a statutory diktat which Parliament has invested her with by virtue of the Fugitive Offenders Act, and that the question of bias does not arise. That the question of bias, if an allegation of bias can be made, can only be directed to the judicial tribunals. That is to say, the Magistrates Court, the High Court, and if they go to the Court of Appeal and elsewhere. That in extradition proceedings, the question of bias does not apply to, and principles of bias do not apply to a magistrate, the Minister of Home Affairs, when that minister is exercising the power to issue or not to issue the authority to proceed.
Powerful contributions were made in the National Assembly throughout Wednesday as the 2026 budget debate continued. As they addressed the $1.558 trillion spending plan, parliamentarians delved into specific allocations, highlighting the strides made in some sectors and the necessary investments still needed in others.
Passionate contributions continued in the National Assembly throughout Wednesday as the budget debate over the $1.558 trillion national budget for this year continued. Workers were the first area of priority as the debate continued on Wednesday. You had the Minister of Public Service, Government Efficiency and Implementation, Irfaan Ali, speaking about the government's huge push towards digitizing the public sector, thereby making public services more accessible and efficient for all persons. Soon after him, you had the Minister of Labour and Manpower Planning, Keoma Griffith, speaking about new training programs that would be launched for workers and new efforts to make sure that workers are kept safe as they execute their duties daily. What was interesting from Minister Griffith's presentation was the announcement of a new training program specifically for truck drivers. Of course, there have been concerns in public discourse raised about truck drivers since many accidents recently were caused by seemingly errant drivers, including the recent fatal accident on the barge Demerara River Bridge, which involved an unlicensed young truck driver. Aside from those contributions on workers, you had all the parliamentarians, particularly those from the opposition side, speaking about the need for higher wages and salaries and greater benefits for workers. Soon enough, the conversation shifted to Guyana's foreign policy, including the country's case before the International Court of Justice involving the border controversy with Venezuela, its international trade, and even diaspora engagement. While Guyana's international profile has been rising and strides were hailed in the National Assembly, it was opposition parliamentarian Amanza Walton Desir who spoke about what else is needed. Of course, Ms. Walton Desir represents the Forward Guyana Movement Party. She's the sole representative of that party. Here's a bit of her presentation.
I have raised the issue of a migration management system consistently over the years, and it was never from a place of fear or intolerance or ignorance. It was from a place of responsibility, because migration is a reality. But it is a reality that we have to govern.
The healthcare sector was another well-debated sector during the debates on Wednesday. WIN's Dr. Ryan Richards spoke about healthcare being more accessible to persons all across the country, especially for those in the hinterland. Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony countered him by highlighting that strides had been made in making healthcare more accessible to all persons.
The health budget should be judged in the hospital corridors, the health posts, in the maternity wards, in hinterland villages, in homes of citizens forced to buy medication privately.
We don't have to come here to convince anybody. The people of this country, they know fully well what they are enjoying.
Dr. Anthony also spoke about the expansion of primary health care, which shows that the government is trying to do much more work in ensuring that problems are identified and treated quite early.
When a child starts nursery school, Mr. Speaker, we are able to screen that child so that we can check if they are hearing properly, we can check if they are seeing properly, we can do a dental checkup for them, and I should urge the member to also do part of these dental checkups in Linden. Mr. Speaker, over the last 2 years, we have checked 18,374 nursery school children.
Late into the night, there were strong rebuttals from government parliamentarians, particularly those within the housing sector, on criticisms that had been raised earlier by opposition parliamentarians. We heard from the Minister of Housing, Colin Crowell, and the Minister within the Ministry of Housing, Vanessa Ben.
The Hyde Park Yarracabra Homestead Project, which I'm immensely proud about, an initiative of our President, ensures that housing units, each of which will have a shade house, and uses our lesser used timber species, provides housing units which are allocated through a transparent and accountable process. Mr. Speaker, the beneficiaries of this project will be engaged in small-scale agriculture, enhance food security, and generate supplemental income right from their homesteads. Mr. Speaker, this particular project targets female-headed households. Mr. Speaker, the housing and agriculture sectors are coming together in this context, as well as the forestry sector, creating not just homes, but pathways to independence, stability, and sustainable livelihoods for families to thrive.
The penultimate day of the budget debate is Thursday, and the final set of speakers, including Opposition Leader Azruddin Mohamed and Finance Minister Dr. Ashley Singh, are expected to present on Friday. For the newsroom, I'm Vishan Raghavir.
More to come when the newsroom returns. GDF Chief Brigadier Omar Khan has warned that Guyana cannot afford complacency, and President Irfaan Ali says Budget 2026, like every PPPC budget, delivers real benefits to citizens. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is the newsroom. Chief of Defense Staff of the Guyana Defence Force, Brigadier Omar Khan, has issued a firm warning that Guyana cannot afford complacency in an increasingly unstable regional and global security environment, stressing that the Guyana Defence Force must continue to stand guard. Speaking at the opening of the annual officers' conference on Thursday, Brigadier Khan said that the Guyana Defence Force made significant progress in strengthening capabilities and safeguarding the country's borders, despite 2025 being a demanding and busy year. He further cautioned that evolving geopolitical realities are placing unprecedented demands on the force.
By now, we all are aware, since our last conference, how much the world has changed, how much our region has changed. These changes continue to take form in 2026 and are significant enough to demand more from us in unprecedented ways. They necessitate our undivided and focused attention, as they have essentially added further implications to our own threat matrix, comprising of traditional and emerging threats. Notably, this environment continues to evolve and is shaped by persistent conflicts, strategic competitions, and shifting geopolitical alignments. Ongoing wars and regional tensions are eroding long-standing norms, straining global stability, affecting trade equilibrium, and placing sustained pressure on traditional institutions, and to some extent, military partnerships. For Guyana, these developments are not abstract or distant concerns. They translate into real and present risks for our national security, particularly with respect to border security and the defense of our territorial integrity. Through one particular lens, we continue to assess the recent developments in Venezuela. And I must say, regardless of any opportunity such developments can potentially bring, we will and must continue to stand guard. Our mission, even in such an environment, to protect and defend our territory remains non-negotiable. I have to say, being aware, preparing to adopt no matter what, and exercising agility have positioned us to protect wider and defend stronger.
Meanwhile, President Irfaan Ali on Thursday said every People's Progressive Party civic budget has delivered real benefits to ordinary Guyanese as he continued his Budget 2026 Explainer series. In his address, the president said successive PPPC budgets have consistently reduced the cost of living and expanded opportunities, pointing to the removal of more than 200 taxes, the reversal of increased water rates, and the return of the Because We Care cash grant for school children, all of which were taken away under the previous APNU AFC administration. Turning to Budget 2026, President Ali rejected claims that it does not benefit ordinary citizens, saying such statements ignore clear measures outlined by the Minister of Finance.
To summarize the budget would take me all morning, but I just want to look at a few things. A summary of some of the provisions that would directly impact every segment of our population. First, we have an increase in the low-income mortgage ceiling. Who does this benefit? Low-income homeowners, middle-income homeowners, young professionals who can now borrow a loan at $30 million and have the same rate applied as low-income. How does this not translate into benefit? When persons own their own homes, when you have the security of your own home, collateral that can be used to accelerate wealth creation. Of course, and housing improvement subsidy of $7.5 billion that will directly support the housing needs and home improvement of the vulnerable segment of our population. reduction in VAT on various types of vehicles, making vehicles ownership easier. Why do you think an entire series is completed in 3 months now? Because we have made it easier for the ordinary family to own a vehicle. The reduction in VAT on various types of vehicles, various initiatives to ease the cost of living, including the maintenance of 0% excise tax on petroleum products. That alone will cost over $100 billion. The freight charges, the pre-pandemic level, that is billions of dollars of investment. When you look at the mortgage support program, that is billions of dollars that is going back to first-time homeowners. When you look at the increase in the Because We Care grant, billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars, going to who? The children of our country. The introduction of a new annual transportation grant for our children, almost $4.1 billion. When you add that to the Because We Care grant, it's close to $18 billion of transfer to our children. The continued support for the Caribbean Examination Council's exam. The government paying for your children's exams. Who benefits? Increase in old age pension. The increase alone would cost us about $5.7 billion. Plus the introduction of an annual transportation support grant to our old age pensioners. That is another $2 billion. The old age pension, and this would cost us more than $54 billion. That is $54 billion that will be transferred directly to the elders in our society.
A year of expanded events, strategic partnerships, and enhanced regional tourism offerings are expected for the local tourism scene, according to the president of the Tourism and Hospitality Association of Guyana, Mitra Ramkumar. Speaking to the newsroom recently, Ramkumar said the association is committed to elevating Guyana's tourism appeal both locally and internationally.
Of course, we have Matrimony as well, and we have this year is our Diamond Jubilee year of independence. So there are lots of activities, lots to look forward to, lots to come home to in Guyana. So I look forward to see a lot, and the events are going to be bigger and better. We also have coming very shortly is Energy Conference, right? And this is another element of MICE tourism. We also have an accountants conference coming up in the first half, I believe, first half of this year. And so we are offering packages as an industry to when persons come for meetings, for conferences, such as these, that you're able to now offer. I mean, we have been doing it before, but we're trying to do it in a lot more, concerted way to be able to tap in really, genuinely with the organizers to get more participation for when people come for these conferences and such, to see more of Guyana, experience more of Guyana. We are hoping to have an easier system. I know the bridge is coming, but in the meantime, we are hoping to have a better system in terms of booking vehicles for transport on that ferry. So it's someone that's a lot more user-friendly, like we have on the Essequibo River, right? So we are hoping to have such a system established for that ferry, and that is part of the MOUs we signed with the Suriname Hotel and Tourism Association.
So is that moving? Like, where does that stand right now?
So we will follow it up with our ministry here, Ministry of Public Works. I know SHAT is following it up from their end.
Lizo Events, in partnership with the Masmani Carnival Band, will showcase the minerals of Guyana for Matrimony 2026, blending culture, color, and carnival flair. Businessman Christopher Enzo Matthews told the newsroom that the experience will also roll into Trinidad Carnival 2026, offering revelers all-inclusive packages featuring costumes, party trucks, and premium vibes. With packages ranging from $10,000 to $60,000, Matthews said it will be an experience for revelers in Guyana and at Trinidad Carnival.
We're going to be putting together 4 trucks on the road. So what's going to be happening with these 4 trucks? Truck number 1 is going to be your all-inclusive VVVIP with costumes and everything. And then the person who just generally has always enjoyed what we call mash down the road type of vibe. You can wear anything that you want, all right? And you can come on either one of the trucks, or you can be on the road. We'll be also having a cart that will be pulling on the road that you'll then be able to facilitate getting drinks there versus having to go on the truck. Because, you know, one big aspect of MASH what people usually forget, it's literally mashing down the road. If you guys want to see these costumes and these packages, you just visit Pulse Carnival or Mass Money Carnival online on our Facebook, our Instagram. My profile also is Christoph_Lizo. You know, you can always reach out to me. I'm always at some interview. The section name is Zuri, and we are there with RC Mass as a section leader. All right. And honestly, I want people to know this. This is one of the prettiest costumes we have there. We love the privilege that, you know, Guyana is having the opportunity to collaborate with a Trinidad band who's been around for 20 plus years. So it's not just Mass Money Carnival going to Trinidad. It's to also put Guyana even further within the region with these level of stuff. Because, you know, we have a new minister in the tourism thing, and she also likes these kind of things. You know, so she said, Enzo, you know, whatever you guys are going to do, we're going to support you and make it better. So, you know, shout out to the Visit Guyana team, Discover Guyana team. You know, these people have really been supporting me throughout this entire process, because that's how we bring people back home.
When the newsroom returns, the financial weather and bridge report along with sport. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Newsroom. Now for a look at what's happening in sport. We're starting off with some news out of Budget 2026 debate. Member of Parliament for We Invest in Nationhood, Odessa Primus, believes much more needs to be done for ground enhancement across the country as she rose to make her maiden parliamentary presentation during the 2026 budget debate. Primus argued that a more holistic approach is required to ensure real development takes place. The Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, Charles Ramson Jr., who spoke after Primus, detailed the government's investment in community grounds over the years and reminded the House of the many achievements of his ministry since he took office. Ramson Jr. touched on Guyana's remarkable medal haul in regional and international competitions, Guyana's hosting of prestigious tournaments, and the talent identification pathway that has produced global stars.
When you go around this country and you look at the deplorable state, this honorable member, she's not here, Nema Flew Best brought a picture with cows and so on out there having a frolicking time. The place without light. You understand me? Now we are talking about the fastest growing economy. And we cannot feel comfortable as citizens of this country to think that all that matters is that you got a ball, field the grass low, you put some lights. That is development. Where do they go? Where do they go to ensure that they do the little washing off, they're warming up and all of that? We have not put systems in place for these sorts of things because our thinking is not futuristic. You have Bartica, for example. I'm a Bartician by birth, honorable members. And in Bartica, I can tell you that nothing looks significantly different from when I was a child growing up there. And how could we have billions of dollars, year come, year go, and it is not reflected in the way our country looks? Nobody's saying that we don't appreciate, nobody's saying that we don't appreciate the work that the ministry is doing. But we would appreciate greatly if it is done with holistic thought.
Over the last 5 years, we lit 145 grounds in this country. They set us a target of 25. We did 145 grounds. We started for the first time in this country. A national sports academy categorized into core and non-core sports. We built strong relationships with sports associations, and all of the sports associations have issued their support for us, this ministry, the budget, because they know how they have benefited. Importantly as well, we started tracking and measuring how many medals our athletes started to secure. They have never been tracked before. In the last 3 years alone, we have secured over 1,000 international and regional medals by our athletes. 2024, I want people to know this. In 2024, we held 29 international sporting events in this country, and last year it was 33. They don't even understand how difficult that is. And I want to thank all of the members from the ministry who are here. Thank you very much. To do 33 international sporting events in a country, that is more than one every other week. That is driving tourism into our country. Development of athletes, development of talent, so that they can get exposure to higher levels of competition, better levels of coaching. We obtained for the first time something we wanted, the CPL finals and semi-finals. And we also won. By the way, we obtained that at no cost to the Treasury. No cost to the Treasury. We also won the CPL for the first time. Our cricketers are now being scouted and playing in international franchise leagues, getting paid more money than they've ever done before. We're talking about athletes and coaches. And I will tell you one of them, if it wasn't for the fact that Shamar Joseph didn't play in that CPL where we had identified his talent, he would not have made it to the West Indies team and then also become the MVP for that tournament when West Indies beat Australia.
Now, the long-awaited opening of the Bayrock National Stadium will take place on Saturday, signaling a significant infrastructural boost for sport in the mining town of Linden. As expected, athletes were overjoyed to finally see the project coming to completion, commencing a new era for sportsmen and women in a town that has churned out athletes with remarkable skills and consistency over the years.
For years now, we never having a track like that, you know, and the athletes used to running on grass or on mud or whatever the case might be, and they used to do good same way. So the track now is like getting a brand new car, so it work better, and the athletes able to perform more better. So we able to go wherever we get a chance to represent the country or even Linden, we supposed to perform more better 100%, because we having a real nice track. You understand? We having a track that the athletes could even train on. We never used to get that years ago. So I think that is a very good move towards the government.
I feel it's a good initiative for the Linden athletes, especially for me, because we train here on the field. You see sometimes when the rain falls, the place flooded and these things. So now on the track now, we get the right distances, the right measurements to our events and these stuff. So there was a time when we used to train on the road. And train on the road, it's very hard. It's a hard surface you're running on, and you would usually get this pain called shin splints, and it will take a very good while to go away. But now with the track, we don't have to worry about that as much as, you know, when we used to run on the road or on the sand.
This development to Linden will surely, it has been a really good development for the athletes, especially the runners them. So definitely it will do Linden really good, because most for maybe for the last 2 decades, Linden athletes they would have to leave to go to Georgetown. So now that the Linden athlete will get a chance to showcase their talent in Linden, it's definitely okay.
Cricket news now. Shimon Hetmyer is set to join the West Indies team for the World T20 starting this weekend in India and Sri Lanka after encountering visa issues, according to reports. The left-hander missed the official team photo shoot, with the International Cricket Council saying he was absent from the event. It is understood Hetmyer is still in South Africa. Cricket West Indies issued a brief statement assuring that the matter will be dealt with soon. It is further understood that Hetmyer will arrive in time for the West Indies opening game against Scotland on Saturday from 5:30 in Kolkata. West Indies are aiming for a third World T20 title after the now head coach Darren Sammy skippered the Caribbean side to title successes in 2012 and 2016. Meanwhile, the West Indies head coach Darren Sammy says Shimon Hetmyer is showing maturity and taking responsibility in that critical number 3 position as the team prepares to compete in the T20 World Cup starting this weekend in India and Sri Lanka, a position held previously by Nicholas Pooran, who has since retired from international cricket. Hetmyer has found success at the number 3 spot, and his returns have been 171 runs from 3 innings in the just concluded series against South Africa. His scores of 48, 75 and 48 not out came at a combined strike rate of 178. Sammy is enthused by the progress shown by Hetmyer ahead of the global showpiece, which West Indies have won twice under Sammy's captaincy.
Hetty, you know, these teammates challenge him. You know, he loves finishing the inning, but we saw Rutherford playing, you know, a finisher role in the SA20. We all know how teams try to bowl that left arm spinner early up against our right-handers. So Hetty taking responsibility when he was challenged by his teammates to do that number 3 position. You know, it's worked well for us, and he's showing maturity, batting with a good head on his shoulder, and he's putting bowlers under pressure and changing the plans of teams, which is good for us.
And Royal Challengers Bengaluru completed a stunning record Women's Premier League chase to lift their 2nd title and inflict a 4th successive final defeat on Delhi Capitals. RCB, who won the first title in 2024, chased 204 with 2 balls to spare after a memorable innings from both captain Srimati Mandana with 87 off 41 and Australia's Georgia Vole with 79 of 54. The pair put on a record-breaking stand of 165 of 92 balls after they lost Grace Harris in the second over for 9. They brilliantly exploited their matchups, and Mandana's superb innings saw her finish as the tournament's leading run scorer with 377. Vole was dismissed with 30 required, and Rika Ghosh followed 7 balls later before Mandana fell in the penultimate over when she was bowled by Chanel Henry. Radha Yadav was dropped off her first ball, but with 10 needed from the final over, she hit the third and fourth balls over the covers for 4 to seal victory. The defeat marked another disappointment for Capitals, who have been beaten in every final in the tournament's 4-year history. And with that, we've come to the end of the news for this evening. Of course, you can find updates on these and other stories on our website, newsroom.gy, and all social media platforms. On behalf of the entire news team, I'm Ramson. Thanks for watching. Be safe. See you next time.